The show began like any other, and that was the first problem. The arena lights were bright but lifeless, the crowd loud but distracted, as if everyone was waiting for something they couldn't name. The matches before it all happened landed, technically clean, professionally executed, but nothing stuck. The energy refused to settle. It hovered, uneasy, like a room where an argument had just ended but no one had left yet. Commentary filled the air with routine words, but the tone never fully committed. There was hesitation in the cadence, a strange carefulness, as if even the voices at the desk sensed that the night was unstable, not dangerous yet, just off, the kind of off that makes people sit differently in their seats without realizing why. The crowd buzzed in patches. Some cheered, some scrolled on their phones, some stared blankly at the entrance ramp longer than necessary. It wasn't anticipation. It was suspicion. The show was moving forward, but something about the pacing felt dragged, stretched thin, like time itself was stalling. A graphic flashed, a transition cue, nothing unusual, yet the noise dipped instead of rising. The arena didn't explode, it inhaled, the kind of breath people take when they expect bad news, not celebration. Even the music that followed didn't hit immediately. There was a delay, half a second too long, enough for confusion to seep in. Commentary stumbled. Not with words, but with silence, a pause that shouldn't exist on live television. Someone tried to fill it, then stopped. Another voice started, then softened. They weren't sure what they were supposed to feel yet. The camera found the crowd, faces caught between excitement and doubt, hands frozen mid-clap, people looking at each other instead of the stage, silently asking if everyone else felt it too. This wasn't nostalgia, this wasn't joy, it felt like recognition without relief. The entrance ramp remained empty longer than normal. Too long, the lights dimmed further, but not dramatically. There was no theatrical punch, just a gradual sinking, like the room was losing oxygen. The music finally steadied, low and restrained, lacking the familiar confidence it once carried. Then she appeared, not rushing, not posing, no acknowledgement of the noise that barely existed. Becky Lynch stepped into view, but she didn't arrive like someone returning. She arrived like someone interrupting. Her posture was stiff, shoulders squared, eyes forward, expression unreadable, not angry, not calm. Something heavier. The crowd didn't cheer. Some did, instinctively, then stopped. Others stayed silent. A few gasped. The reaction fractured instantly, and no side fully won. This wasn't the Becky fans remembered, and the realization hit before anyone could explain why. She stood at the top of the ramp, longer than necessary, not soaking anything in, not feeding off the crowd, not giving them permission to feel. The silence stretched again, uncomfortable, almost confrontational. It wasn't dramatic, it was awkward. Like seeing someone you used to know and realizing you don't know what to say anymore. Her gear was familiar in shape but wrong in feeling. Darker, muted, stripped of personality. No sparkle, no bravado, no wink to the past. The kind of gear worn by someone who no longer needed approval. Or worse, someone who no longer cared if they were liked at all. Commentary tried to ground the moment, but the words came out thin. Questions replaced statements. Speculation replaced certainty. They weren't selling a return. They were trying to understand one in real time. And the more they talked, the clearer it became that they didn't. Becky began to walk, slow, deliberate. Each step landed heavy, not because of theatrics, but because of restraint. She didn't look at the fans, didn't acknowledge signs or chants that attempted to form and failed. The crowd wanted a cue, a nod, a smile, anything. She gave them nothing. Some fans cheered louder, desperate to force the moment into something familiar. Others went quiet, unsettled by the refusal. A few boos surfaced, not aggressive, but confused. The arena split emotionally, and the division felt permanent, not playful. Halfway down the ramp, the camera caught something else. Jade Cargill, already in the ring, standing still, arms at her sides, no expression, no movement. She didn't need to react. Her presence alone changed the temperature. The contrast was immediate. Becky, moving with controlled tension, Jade unmoving, dominant in silence. The commentary desk lowered their voices without realizing it. The cadence slowed. Words carried more weight now. This wasn't a confrontation yet, but it felt inevitable, like two storms occupying the same sky. Becky stopped again, looked up not at Jade directly, but past her, like the ring itself was something she had unfinished business with. Her jaw tightened, her eyes hardened, not rage, resolve, the kind built from long nights and private decisions. The crowd noise dipped to an eerie murmur. No chant took hold. No rhythm formed. People didn't know what to do with this version of her. She wasn't inviting them in, she was shutting them out. Jade didn't move, didn't smirk, didn't posture. She didn't need to. Her stillness was louder than any taunt. The power dynamic was unclear, and that uncertainty fed the discomfort. When Becky finally reached the ring steps, she paused once more. Hands on the steel, head lowered, breathing measured. This wasn't a triumphant return. It felt like a reckoning, and the audience sensed it, sitting frozen, realizing they weren't watching a moment meant to be enjoyed. They were witnessing something that demanded to be endured. Becky stepped into the ring without flair, without acknowledgement, without ceremony. The ropes barely moved as she passed through them, as if even the ring resisted reacting. She stood upright, center-left, not claiming space, not yielding it either. Her presence didn't dominate the ring. It altered it. Jade Cargill finally turned her head. Just enough. No smile, no glare. Just recognition. The kind that doesn't flatter. The kind that weighs options. Two figures occupying the same space, neither reaching for dominance yet, and that restraint unsettled the room more than violence ever could. The commentary desk fell silent again. Not scripted silence, human silence. The kind born from not wanting to say the wrong thing. The crowd followed suit. Thousands of people breathing together, waiting for something that refused to arrive. Becky lifted her head slowly. Her eyes met Jade's, and the exchange wasn't electric, it was heavy. Like two people acknowledging damage rather than threat. The tension wasn't about who would win, it was about what this meant. Becky's face showed no excitement, no joy, no pride. There was exhaustion there, hardened, compressed. The kind that comes from carrying expectation until it warps into something colder. This wasn't someone chasing a spotlight. This was someone standing under it, unwillingly. A chant tried to form. It died quickly. The sound felt inappropriate, almost disrespectful to the weight of the moment. Fans realized instinctively that this wasn't theirs to control. They weren't participants. They were witnesses. Jade took one step forward, slow, measured. The ring responded with a faint creak. Becky didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't react. The distance closed just enough to make people uncomfortable. Security at ringside shifted subtly. Authority figures leaned forward in their chairs backstage. Not because something was happening, but because something might, and that possibility felt dangerous. Becky exhaled, a visible release of breath. Then nothing. No mic, no gesture, no challenge. The absence of action became the statement. The message was unclear, and that ambiguity rattled everyone watching. The segment ended without resolution. Music didn't hit. No brawl erupted. No winner emerged. The camera cut away awkwardly, almost apologetically, as if production itself didn't know how to frame what had just occurred. Backstage, the silence followed her. Wrestlers watched monitors with tight expressions. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Some looked worried. Others looked angry. A few looked inspired, but quietly, like they weren't sure they were allowed to feel that way. Becky walked past them without a word. No nods, no smiles, just forward motion. The locker room felt smaller after that, and the question, nobody said out loud, lingered heavier than any chant ever could. If this is who Becky Lynch is now, what does that mean for everyone else? The aftermath didn't explode. It spread. Slowly, unevenly, like pressure finding cracks. Backstage, the mood shifted from shock to anxiety. Wrestlers spoke in lowered voices, speculating not about matches, but about direction, about space, about whether the ground beneath them had just moved. Some wondered what version of Becky this was. Others wondered why Jade Cargill hadn't reacted. The silence between them became its own story, analyzed frame by frame, debated without conclusions. Authority figures held meetings that went nowhere, circling the same concerns without naming them. This wasn't a return that boosted morale. It unsettled it. Plans suddenly felt fragile. Stories once locked in felt optional. The locker room understood power dynamics instinctively. And this moment had rewritten something without explaining what. Media coverage didn't celebrate. It questioned. Headlines leaned cautious. Words like changed, uncomfortable, and unexpected replaced the usual language of triumph. Fans argued online, not about greatness, but about intent. Some felt betrayed. Others felt intrigued. Many felt uneasy and couldn't explain why. Jade Cargill's name became inseparable from the conversation. Her presence reframed the return entirely. Analysts spoke about her silence more than Becky's actions. About what it meant to stand and not respond. About control. About inevitability. Pressure mounted on decision-makers. Was this sustainable? Was this safe? Could audiences sit with discomfort this long? Ratings mattered, but so did locker room stability. This wasn't just about two performers anymore. It was about tone, about identity. Becky remained absent from public view. No statements, no interviews, no clarifications. That absence spoke louder than any promo could. Fans searched for explanations where none were offered. Speculation filled the void, growing more distorted by the hour. Privately, the cost showed. Family schedules adjusted. Security protocols changed. The weight of expectation returned. Heavier this time, shaped by confusion rather than hope. Becky hadn't come back to reclaim something. She'd come back carrying something unresolved, and everyone felt responsible for it now. Jade, meanwhile, became the quiet center of the storm. Her legacy discussions shifted from dominance to responsibility. Was she the obstacle? The mirror? The consequence? She didn't answer, she didn't need to. The industry watched closely. Not with excitement, with concern. This wasn't a viral moment to be replayed endlessly. It was a fracture to be monitored carefully. And through it all, one truth settled uncomfortably into place. Whatever this return was meant to be, it wasn't over. It hadn't even properly begun. It had simply arrived, uninvited, and refused to explain itself. Time passed, but the feeling didn't fade. Weeks later, fans still spoke about that night in lowered tones, as if raising their voices might disturb something unfinished. Clips circulated endlessly, not because they thrilled, but because they confused. People watched, rewatched, paused, searching for clarity that never appeared. Becky Lynch didn't restore balance, she disrupted it. Her presence on the roster felt like a question mark standing upright, impossible to ignore. Every match she wasn't in still felt shaped by her return. Every decision felt measured against the uncertainty she introduced. The crowd reactions never stabilized. Some nights leaned supportive, others leaned cold. Silence became common, and not the respectful kind, the uneasy kind. The kind that forces performers to confront themselves without feedback. Jade Cargill's path grew heavier too. Expectations sharpened. Every movement analyzed, every expression dissected. Her silence, once effortless, now carried responsibility. People wanted answers she had never promised to give. Backstage, careers were reconsidered, futures recalculated. Younger talent watched closely, realizing that stability in this world was temporary at best, that even legends could return not as saviors, but as reminders. Becky never explained herself, and maybe that was the point. Maybe this wasn't about redemption or dominance. Maybe it was about confrontation without resolution, about standing in the discomfort instead of escaping it. The industry thrives on moments that explode and fade. This one lingered. It pressed down quietly, reshaping expectations, altering emotional footing. It asked something of the audience without telling them what, and as weeks turned into months, one realization became impossible to shake. This wasn't the Becky fans remembered because memory had nothing to do with it. This was Becky as she was now, unfiltered, uncomfortable, unapologetic in her silence. The question remained, unanswered and heavy. If this return wasn't meant to inspire, entertain, or reassure, then what was it meant to do?